Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I am so excited. I just turned the camera on because I got a package delivered to me just a few minutes ago, and it's the new Makeup by Mario Soft Pop Plumping Blush Veils. And these are the cream blushes that come in the pan. They are the sister product to the cream bronzer that came out last year. Originally, I had ordered just one shade, but I wasn't sure if it would show up on me, so I ordered two more. So we're going to cheek swatch these and swatch them on my hand. I'm gonna apply them and I'm gonna give you a quick review. So let me just show you what these look like. I picked up 3 shades and there are 6 shades. They're $30 each. The first shade I picked up is called Barely Blushing. And this is what it looks like. This is the one that I was worried would be too light for me. It's definitely this kind of like beigey rose. And let me swatch it for you. These do have a balmy feeling, and you can see they melt on contact with the finger. And they are a pretty sheer formula, sheer and dewy, I would say. So there is Barely Blushing. Next, I picked up Just Peachy, and I'm actually surprised at how bright this appears in person. It's a little bit more of like a peachy coral than I expected. So let me swatch this one. The last one I picked up is called Rose Crush, and this is kind of like a mid-tone rose, a bit more pigmented and a bit deeper in tone. And actually, as I'm building up the swatch, I'm seeing a bit of a brown tone in this. So that is Barely Blushing, Just Peachy, and Rose Crush. I'm really happy with the shades that I picked. They're definitely my kind of shade. And just for comparison, let me show you these side by side. I have Barely Blushing, Just Peachy, and Rose Crush. That's what those look like. Just for a bit of reference, I'm actually going to swatch their Skin Enhancing Soft Sculpt Transforming Skin Enhancer. Still haven't learned this name after a year of using it. I love this product. Something I was wary about with this formula was that it would be too dewy when I first got it. And it is dewy and it feels very similar to the blushes when you swatch it, because it has a sheerness and a transparency, and it doesn't set down, interestingly enough, but it's such a sheer formula that even though it's dewy, it just acts as almost like a bronzer tint, like a bronzing tint to the skin. So I'm wondering if that's how the blushes will act on the face as well, because they also have that sheerness and that dewiness and transparency, and I don't feel them setting down. For a bit of background, I have combo oily skin. I'm getting a little bit oilier as we go into summer, and right now I just have a skin tint on and a bit of concealer and brow gel. I haven't powdered, haven't added setting spray. There's nothing that I think that's going to alter the finish of the blushes as I try them on. I'm going to start with Barely Blushing. I want to go lightest to deepest just so you can see each shade. I think I might do one blush on each side and then we'll see. So Barely Blushing is the one that I was worried would be a bit too light, but I think it makes sense for this blush to be this light because it's Barely Blushing. It's hardly meant to be there. So I'm going to take my Beauty Pie Seamless Foundation Buffing Brush. I actually really like foundation brushes for applying cream bronzer, and I'm just going to load up the brush directly into the pan. This is what I do with the bronzer as well. And I'm just going to apply at the top of my cheekbones. Ooh, this is so pretty. I can already tell I like it. I'm just going in sort of a stamping motion, and I'm going to apply really, really broadly across the cheek. The thing about this kind of shade and it being sort of close to my skin tone and not too deep is that I can apply it really generously without going overboard. So that's one sheer application. You can see it's different, obviously, compared to my natural skin tone, but it is Barely Blushing because it has that beigey quality to it, that very neutral beigey quality. It's not a in-your-face blush. This is the kind of blush that will go, I think, with any sort of eye look. It almost has kind of like a mauvey undertone to it, at least on my skin tone, but it might pull a little bit peachier depending on your undertones. I actually really like having a blush in this sort of tone in my blush wardrobe. Also, much like the bronzer, it applies in a really sheer, even layer. It's the weirdest thing. It's almost like if a blush were a skin tint, or if a cream blush were a skin tint. It's like that because it's not full on pigment. It starts out sheer, and so it gives you that glow. And it is dewy to touch. It won't set down. It remains dewy, but it's not sticky, and it's not a thick, heavy, like goopy, creamy feeling. It's just almost like a light dewiness across the skin. But that's what gives it that beautiful reflectivity across the skin. It gives you that glowy look, not because there's like shimmer in the pigment, but because the formula itself is sheer and glowy. For the next side, I'm gonna go in with Just Peachy, and I'm using my Phytosurgeon's Sky Fluff brush. This is their bigger brush. Also great for applying cream blushes. This one is definitely warmer, and it has a bit more coral in it. So we'll see how this looks on the cheeks. Again, I like to apply these just kind of by tapping across the cheek. Another thing about this formula is that it's super mistake proof because it's sheer and because it's dewy and it glides across the skin. I mean, I do like to tap rather than slide, but even still, I feel like it's a hard blush to mess up because it doesn't deposit too much pigment at once. It starts out really sheer. And this shade even looks deeper in the pan, but on my cheek, it's actually quite sheer, and it makes this color, this bright peachy coral shade, a lot less intimidating, I think. So that is Just Peachy. And it's definitely warmer and a lot less orange on the skin than it looks in the pan, actually. I don't feel like it looks quite as coral. It is reading as a peach, albeit a kind of like brighter, happier peach rather than an earthy peach. For Rose Crush, I think because it has similar undertones to Barely Blushing, I'm going to use this sort of on the back of my cheek as a sculpting blush around the perimeter, and maybe I'll do the same on this side as well, just so you can see how it looks with both blushes. So I'm going to take my Phytosurgeon's Sky Buff brush and just again dip directly into the pan. And I just want to show you the way it picks up on the brush. Even though it picks up like on the fibers, as soon as it hits the skin, it melts into one very even layer. It's a really sophisticated formula. So I'm just going to tap, tap, tap on the back of my cheek and into my temples. I'm even going to brush it across the forehead. Now that I'm applying it to my skin, I feel like it actually has a bit of that earthy browniness. It's like a brownie rose that makes it kind of a bronzy, a bronzer, if you will. And you can see it kind of sculpted my cheek a little bit right here under the cheekbone. So I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side with the same brush. Even though it has a different undertone than Just Peachy, I think because these are so sheer, they're kind of all working together nicely. And then I'm going to touch up Barely Blushing just in the front of the cheek a little bit more. These are buildable to an extent. You're not gonna get like opaque cheeks, but you can see I'm adding color and you can see it building on the cheek. And just for fun, let's touch up Just Peachy as well. Also, something I love is that these blushes play well with every base product. They've never picked up my foundation. I think because they're so light and I go in with a stippling motion. You can also apply them with fingers. And again, because they're dewy and sheer and lightweight and thin, they never pick up or move around the base product underneath. I've even applied them over like a powdered base and I never have issues. So a few things to note: they don't set down. My hair, for example, might stick to my cheek a little bit. So that's just something to note. If you really hate a sticky cheek, they do have a bit of that like glossiness, but that's also what makes them so beautiful. They give you that really like, I don't know, just applied skincare kind of sheen to the cheek without adding any glitter. And it's so, so nice. And I feel like it's also hydrating on the skin because it does give it that plumped up look, which is what they're called, right? Soft Pop Plumping Blush Veil. They do give the cheeks that plumped up look because they look smooth on the surface. They look kind of glossy, but it also like glides over any skin texture and pores. So if you can't tell, I am a fan. I'm actually kind of glad I got all three of these blushes. They're all different, and I know that they'll go with different kinds of looks, and I can already tell I'm going to get a lot of use out of them. They're just easy. They're mistake proof. I don't think there will be many people that don't like them unless you want a completely matte, dry cheek. But if you like a cream blush and you gravitate toward creams for that kind of dewy skin look or that real skin look, then I think you'll like these. Something I'm also excited by is that with the 6 shades, I think they go from very light to very deep. All of the shades I've seen swatched and demoed on Makeup by Mario's socials on models of all skin tones from very fair to very deep. And so I'm excited to see that inclusivity with just a 6 shade range. It definitely can be done. I'll definitely be demoing these a little bit. I'll definitely be playing around with these more with different makeup looks on Instagram and TikTok and all of that. But if you have any questions, let me know. I will link these below along with the shade names of each of the ones I've tried. And I'd also love to know if you are interested in this launch, if you picked up any shades, if there are any shades that are calling out to you. I have to admit, I am a little bit curious about the cooler toned pink blushes. I don't need them, but I've got my eye on them. So, you know, we'll see. But I hope you enjoyed. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.